The April 5th, 2023 meeting of the San Mateo County Board of Education will come to order. As is our practice, this meeting will be recorded. The board provides remote access for members of the public and welcomes all the community members joining in person or remotely. The board is following the requirements of Assembly Bill AB 2449, which enables remote participation by board members only under specific circumstances. We use simultaneous interpretation in Spanish for those attending virtually through the end of public comment. Translation will continue further into the meeting if people are utilizing the channel. Thank you to our interpreter, Teresa Mendevel, for joining us remotely. For meeting attendees wishing to access the Spanish translation channel on Zoom, click on the interpretation button on the menu bar. We ask that all speakers be mindful of the Spanish interpretation and speak slowly and clearly. I ask board members to speak directly into the microphone and remind all speakers who are wearing masks to remove their mask when speaking in order to be clearly heard by all attendees. Item 1B is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There is a motion to approve the agenda made by Mr. Cannon and a second by Mr. Camacho. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with unanimous vote and the agenda for tonight's meeting has been approved. Item 2A is public comment. Guidelines for public comment are available on the San Mateo County Office of Education website and in board docs, as well as on the table outside the boardroom in both English and Spanish. If there are speakers who require Spanish interpretation, or our interpreter, Ms. Mendevel, will interpret following each speaker's comments. At this time, members of the public may provide comment for topics not included on the approved agenda. The County Board of Education does not act upon any manner that has not been agendized except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. It is the policy of the County Board to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Superintendent McGee, do we have any comments submitted prior to the meeting?
We did not.
Thank you. Speakers are invited to make live comment and have 3 minutes to speak. The board's executive assistant, Jennifer Perna, will keep the time and advise when the speaker has 30 seconds left. Please keep within the time limits. To make a comment over Zoom, members of the public may use the raised hand feature. Instructions for using this feature are provided as an attachment in the board packet. Once the hand is raised, please wait to be acknowledged by Superintendent McGee. Superintendent McGee, are there any members of the public attending remotely who wish to make a comment at this time?
We have one hand up, Misty Seago.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. Just want to say good evening. I and other members of SMCEA look forward to the changes in accessibility for board meeting recordings. We did hear at a previous board meeting that there was a member of the public that asked that the recordings be made available without the current extensive requests that have to be made. And this is very much appreciated, as we all know that we do have parents that are working multiple jobs and they can find it difficult to make these meetings, let alone find time to file a request for a copy of them. Plus, there have been issues, and there will probably be more issues that could occur since there's now reduced meeting minutes. So the easily accessible recordings are kind of more important than ever for the public. So we appreciate that. In addition, it was our pleasure to see so many of you Friday, March 31st at Court and Community. We were especially happy to see our new board member, Mr. Hugo Torres, in attendance. And I just wanted to say that the board is always welcome at Court and Community. We're honored that our districts entrust us with their students in need. And at Gateway Community High School, we considered ourselves indeed fortunate that the members of the San Mateo County Board of Education support our efforts to provide the much needed services that our districts, parents, and students require of us. On many occasions, the superintendent has said that there are 9 other possible choices of which the districts could choose. Mind you, the choice is not made by something so nebulous. A decision for a student of a district is made by a group of stakeholders, including the parents and the student. And it is these very people at the heart of our concern that time and time again choose Gateway Community High School, and as you well know, have done so for years. It is a simple matter. SMCOE has several necessary functions. The San Mateo County Office of Education offers trainings to teachers within the districts, reviews the budgets of the districts, and offers instructional support to the districts. And so the San Mateo County Office of Education's functions are clearly measurable by the success, maintenance, and support of its own court and community schools. If SMCOE chooses to not support the success of Gateway Community High School, how can it be a trusted partner of the districts? How can it be seen as an authority in education if it is unable or unwilling to support its own schools? One of the hardest things to do in life is to support others, not necessarily in a manner in which you would like, but in the manner in which they need you to. Once a student is at a critical point of need, that is not the time to tell the districts, the stakeholders, or to tell the parents that they have 9 other choices that they could make. At Gateway Community High School, we believe that our families, the district leaders, members of probation when involved, and the many members of the students' transition team know what is best for our students and their families. We listen and we help. That is our purpose. What we don't do is shrug our shoulders and say, hey, you got 9 other options, choose one of those. And so we thank the San Mateo County Board of Education for their support of Court and Community and Gateway Community High School, especially so. For in your support of Gateway, you bring back the focus on our county, our districts, our schools, our families, and our students. You look not for solutions bred of nepotism, side dealings with private companies, and from far-flung San Diego, but from within our established and historically strong San Mateo County family and community. I thank the board again for your kind observations this past Friday at our community school, and I thank you for your listening this evening. But more importantly, for listening to the needs of our district families and putting those needs first. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the public may also provide live comment in person. Superintendent McGee, do we have any cards submitted this evening?
We do. We have 1 card for Christian Morales.
Good evening, everybody. I stand in solidarity with my union sister, Misty of the Teachers Union. Happy April. Congratulations to Hugo Torres for his appointment as trustee of Area 7. As a resident of North Fair Oaks, I'm happy to see someone who has worked with that community having a seat at the table. Okay, boomer, was my first thought when SMCOE announced their lawsuit against social media companies over youth targeting business practices. The 100-page complaint unfortunately reveals that whoever is advising this board is not doing a very good job. The 5 members who voted to initiate this litigation believed the teen crime stories that were over-sensationalized by a Republican PR firm working for Facebook. As mentioned in an article by the San Francisco Chronicle, Santa Clara University law professor Eric Goldman questions whether this lawsuit has any chance of succeeding, given that he sees a wide range of problems. This lawsuit ignores other issues that a student might be facing that could lead to mental health problems. Goldman says that you are all swimming upstream and you have to know it. What is the real intent of filing this lawsuit? Quote, a ploy to use taxpayer money to get name recognition to grift into higher office? Social media is parental responsibility, and they know it, unquote. There are already multiple lawsuits from school districts across the nation against these social media companies. Oddly enough, Meta was originally only a co-conspirator and not a defendant in this case. Was that because Meta is currently leasing SMCOE's Rolling Road building in Burlingame? Our membership feels this is just another publicity stunt to put the focus away from the investigation of the Fair Political Practice Commission against the superintendent and the CEO of Real Matters Camp Lead. Thank you to whoever filed that anonymous complaint alleging potential violations of Government Code Section 1090. The superintendent has not even made a statement directly to SMCOE staff to explain the impact of their decision of giving a contract to the former deputy superintendent. The superintendent needs to address the elephant in the room because this just continues to be water cooler talk and gossip, which they always complain about. The same contractors continue to work and receive payment from SMCOE because the superintendent has not come clean and accepted that they intended to omit information to the board and to the electorate. The superintendent has not acknowledged this impact, and in return, there's a lot of low staff morale. Not a single ounce of remorse from their part. If a rank and file employee had omitted information to a supervisor, the consequences would be different. But that's the culture at SMCOE, right? Top-heavy management get away with almost everything without an ounce of an accountability for their actions. Thank you.
Public comment addressing specific agenda items will be heard immediately before the board takes them up. If members of the public wish to speak to a specific agenda item, please use the raised hand feature when the item is announced, or if in person, submit a card in advance of the item. Item 3A is the ceremonial swearing in of our new San Mateo County Board of Education member, Hugo Torres. I now have the pleasure of administering the oath or affirmation of office. Will Board Member Torres please join me in the middle of the room? I'm going to read the oath and I'd like you to repeat after me. I, Hugo Torres, do solemnly swear
I, Hugo Torres, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California,
bear true allegiance and faith. And allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California.
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, Hugo. Thank you and welcome. It's a good thing I'm not an entertainer. Congratulations again, Hugo, and welcome.
Thank you.
Item 4A is the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 15th, 2023 regular board meeting as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve the minutes of the March 15th, 2023 regular board meeting made by Ms. Benini and a second by Mr. Cannon. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a unanimous vote, and the minutes of the March 15th, 2023 regular board meeting have been approved. Item 5 is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is not debatable and requires a unanimous vote for passage. An item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on a regular order of business for separate discussion and action if any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve the consent agenda made by Ms. Benini and a second by Mr. Cannon. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion passes with unanimous vote, and the consent agenda has been approved. Item 6A, Winnie Hardy, Executive Director, Teacher and Administrator Development. Sarah Notch, Executive Director, Special Education and Instruction, and Dr. Mary Young, Executive Director, Special Education and Local Plan SELPA, will present on the bridge authorization of education specialists. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Welcome, Executive Directors Hardy, Notch, and Young.
Good evening, Board President Gerard, board members, Superintendent McGee, Commissioner Winefield. Today we'll be talking about bridge authorization for our education specialists. I'm going to turn it over to Mary first. Hi, Mary. Can you hear us?
Good evening, Board President Gerard and members of the board. Winnie, Sarah, and I are here tonight to talk about the bridge authorization for education specialists. Next slide, please.
Sorry about that.
Next, thank you. So tonight, the three of us are here to talk about a collaboration between the San Mateo County SELPA and the San Mateo County Office of Education, between the Department of Teacher Administrator Development and the Special Education Instruction departments. Next slide, please. To give you some background about the bridge authorization for education specialists, the work started in 2013 with the statewide special education task force that was formed. At the time, the task force came up with a couple of recommendations that were identified in the final report in March 2015. One of the stipulations of the report was to highlight some key changes. One was to determine how the CTC could provide a credentialing pathway for education specialists that were aligning general ed and special education. So in 2016, there were teacher performance expectations adopted for both general ed and special education teachers that all teachers would be required to attend to and to be required to fulfill within their credentialing programs. In September of 2016, a work group was formed for the review of the preliminary education specialist credentials, and I was a part of that work group as a County Office of Education member. Next slide, please. In that work group, there were identified 7 credentials that ed specialists could attain. What the CTC, or the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, wanted to do was to streamline the process for education specialists to attain their credentials. At the time, those 7 credentials were narrowed down into 5 by the work group, and 3 of the credentials specifically were changed for education specialists. And they were the mild moderate disabilities credential, the moderate severe disabilities credential, and the early childhood special education credential. Those 3 credentials became the new credentials that you see on the slide on the right hand of the slide, which are the mild moderate support needs credential, the extensive support needs credential, and the early childhood special ed credential, which was expanded so that teachers could teach TK and kindergarten. Next slide, please. When these credentials changed, there became a need to look at how old credentials could be grandfathered in to support the differences that became a part of the new credential. So in 2021, CTC created a bridge authorization that went into effect on July 1st, 2022. At the same time, several things happened. The bridge authorization allowed for the LEA's teacher assignment flexibility if a teacher were to attain the new credential. It allowed the students to be served by a qualified instructor, and it met new monitoring requirements that went into effect last year. Next slide, please. This slide actually shows the differences in what the old credential covered in terms of the eligibility categories that serve students with disabilities. On the top row, you can see the credential authorization and the specific eligibility areas in special education that a student could qualify for. The second row lists the mild moderate disabilities credential and the credential areas that that credential could serve. The third row is the new credentialing and the allowance of the ability to serve additional eligibility categories as identified by the orange ovals. Next slide, please. This slide also lists the same information, but for this moderate severe bridge authorization. So you can see that with the bridge authorization, additional eligibility areas would be allowed for education specialists to serve students with specific eligibility areas in special education. Next slide, please. LEAs for the last 2 years or so during COVID and post-COVID have discussed the necessity of staffing in their districts and charter schools. This became a reality across San Mateo County with superintendents discussing the need for additional ed specialists in their classrooms to fulfill the needs of students with disabilities. When the bridge authorization became available on July 1st, 2022, the California Department of Education also began assignment monitoring. A few of our LEAs received notification that some of their teachers were not accurately assigned to students with disabilities in their classrooms. And so at the same time, the SELPA pivoted to try and meet the needs of the LEAs. At the time, SELPA began to look into how we could support our LEAs in providing the bridge authorization so that LEAs could have more flexibility for assigning teachers to their classrooms that were appropriately prepared to serve the needs of their students with disabilities in their classrooms. At the same time, the SELPA Governing Board approves the revenue for countywide training to support this need and to allow for ed specialists to attain the bridge authorization. What SELPA did was try to make this as easy as possible in support of our LEAs in order that we would be able to serve our students first, and then also support the needs of our LEAs. At the time, I turned to Sarah, who led the Center for Access and Engagement, and Winnie, who led the Teacher and Administrative Development team. Both of them collaborated with the SELPA to develop a process for which all of our LEAs could move their edge or recommend their edge specialists attend these trainings in order to meet the requirements of the bridge authorization and potentially receive that authorization in order to create more flexibility in assignment for teachers. Next slide, please.
And so with that collaboration, we sat down to talk about what the landscape could be, knowing that we wanted to be responsive for our teachers as well as our district and charter school. So you'll see a timeline right there. It started in November, really talk about the why of what we're willing to do, really grounded in that. And then the importance of how to do it so that we really make it an impactful professional development for teachers, really building on their assets and getting it and providing that so it's meaningful and at a time frame that works for all of our departments because there's different ebbs and flows with the intensity of work. And so all those parts in consideration. So we define what success would look like and sound like for all the teachers that came through our professional development. You'll see in January and February in the bottom. Then we started talking about within the house what the engagement and partnership looks like, knowing that this impacts our different departments as well as business services, communication that needs to be out there, how to get the word out there, how to make it accessible for everyone, and all the different pieces and details to really ensure accuracy with submission to CTC and providing that stipend to our teachers. January in 2023, we had enrolled both of our coordinators, Zoni and Griffith, to design the professional development with the content that Mary had gathered from her SELPA to guide the work. And so they spent that time designing the professional development. And then in March, we launched in March quickly after. We offered 6 sessions, 2 for mild, moderate support needs, 2 for extensive support needs, and 2 for early childhood special education. Each of those professional sessions were 4 hours, really about making meaning and building community with one another. And right now we're in April. We're verifying the process, making sure the paperwork's accurate. I'm working on how to provide stipends to our teachers. And then we're also going to be evaluating what worked, what we can do better in each department, as well as collectively, 3 of us together. Next slide, please. At a high level, just the content design, so you know how the teachers spent their time together. We really were building on the assets of the room for the services that they offer our students. And so the theme was amplify, amplifying what they know and understand and currently do, providing a place for them to amplify their relationships with one another. So we started off with a community connect, 15, 20 minutes to build that shared space together to get to know each other. Spending time with grounding in the why. Why so important of this work? What are you doing and in what ways can you extend what you're doing? They consumed new standards and new way of thinking, and they made meaning. individually. They read some content on their own. Then they worked in table groups to be experts, if you will, and to share that knowledge with one another, push and pull on thinking. We ended our time with affirmation of their work and expansion of the space as a community, as well as their thinking. And then, of course, ending with gratitude. Really, we can't do without our teachers. And then at the very bottom, you'll see the numbers. Total of 228 have attended our professional development. And our facilitators, you'll see up on top. Great gratitude for all of them, for Griffith Montgomery, Zoni Boyer, as well as Karina Du, who joined us for SE, excuse me. Last bit for me is that we'll talk about the survey on the very left where you see the heart together. Lifting up some of the survey responses we heard from them. That question was about what is something that was presented that is affirming to you. And so you'll see really important things that they've spoke about. The second icon, the question was, what is expansive? What was presented today that really is expanding your thinking and your skill set? Really highlighting the idea of like slowing things down and then really looking at the TPEs, what it looks like and sounds like concretely, what's it look like in the classroom. And then on the very bottom, asking them, what's still circling in your mind? What are you curious about? And where would you like to grow? And you'll see a few of those things listed there, really meaningful and important parts. And then turning over to Sarah, she talks about future PD topics and options.
Thank you. Incredibly honored to be part of this work with such amazing colleagues in collaboration. It truly was. We've been talking a lot about alignment and bringing alignment to action and working kind of collaboratively within our division. And this was, and with SELPA as well, just a shining example of that, to be able to meet some immediate needs. I really appreciate that there was also a focus on long range needs. And Dr. Young and Winnie have both spoken to teacher retention a little bit in here. And we know that teachers need to be supported and developed in order to feel successful and satisfied in their work. And so it was really important for us to get voices from the field lifted up as part of our feedback process so that we could identify some ongoing potential PD topics for future support to help improve student outcomes. So I really appreciated that lens from my colleagues, that they were looking to not only address one issue with the credentialing and that immediate need of making sure that everyone was appropriately placed, but the broader intention to really lift up the work and build the capacity and support our incredible teachers so that we can keep them in San Mateo County and just keep doing amazing things for the students in the community. And as part of getting that feedback from voices in the field was an invitation to be very candid with us. And so we wanted to share some direct quotes from some of the surveys that we received. You'll see kind of the 4 on the left are very positive. And then the 2 on the right, we felt it was important to include that they shared some elements that would be more helpful in designing future offerings and in filling some gaps that we can then turn into future PD topics to address. And so it was just tremendously helpful feedback to inform our work in partnership with our districts to ensure that we can work to meet the exact needs that are being identified and communicated by our partners. I think Dr. Young, is this one you?
It could be me, but I think it was, I think it's Winnie's.
And we wanted to highlight some of the successes. Really, it really is powerful when you can collaborate amongst, when we're really centered in the why, no ego, and really just joint partnership, and really creating space to think deeply and expansively. And really the collaboration and the requirement and commitment of business services too. A lot of work needs to happen in order for this to seem seamlessly out there for our teachers. So just want to shout out to them. And we're really grateful Zoni's here tonight. Just really capable and competent coordinators that really made it work. They played with it, they experimented, they played, they adapted, and it's really what we're asking for. So just a lot of successes in that way. And considerations for the future. We recognize that while the number was great for 284, that's not all our teachers. And so we're thinking about what about those that were unable to attend for whatever reason? What does that mean for us? And as well as accuracy in the data. Just recognizing that when we were combing through the data and certifying the accuracy of what credential is listed for them and what they understood about their credential, just need to comb it a little bit tighter and just make sure that everyone has the right credentials for the services they're providing. And so that's the next wave of work that we're going to go towards. Mary, did I forget anything about the collaboration and all the pieces?
No, I would just like to share that the collaboration and the SELPA actually really appreciates the collaboration of the county office, and not just like when he said the collaboration of the TAD program, but also with the Center for Access and Engagement, but also in the background, the business department who will be supporting the basically the process of allowing teachers to receive the stipends that the SELPA is offering to all the teachers that went through the training and are applying for the credential authorization. So in addition to the stipend that the teachers are receiving, the TAD team is going through all the applications, and then we are also paying for all of the authorizations as they are routed to CTC for approval and issuance of authorization. And so that part and that piece is our county office business department who is not necessarily with us telling you about their role in this, but they have a very big part in this as well. So we really appreciate all the work that everyone has been going through and supporting this. It could not be done alone. And while SELPA has some of the components to provide, this was something that needed cross collaboration.
So we thank you for listening and engaging with us and opening the floor if you have questions for us.
Are there any questions from the board? Mr. Torres?
Hi, thank you. Great presentation. I love all the work that you're doing. For the teachers who were not able to attend, are you going to survey or have you surveyed as to why they didn't attend?
Mary, do you want to take that?
I can answer that. So we have actually had 6 sessions in March. And when we're discussing this with the directors of special education in the LEAs, many of them said that some of the teachers could not attend at this time because of various scheduling difficulties they may have had. But they also, many of the teachers intend to attend in the future if this is offered again. And so the 3 of us are also talking about potential future sessions in order to capture the teachers that we know were not able to participate this time.
Thank you.
Ms. Vanini?
First, I just wanted to just express gratitude for the collaboration because for, the board members mostly know, but maybe Trustee Torres, the SELPA is separate from the county office, but within the county office. And so the collaboration is really important, but it's a different entity. And so it sounds like it was a really big effort, but really important. So thank you. My question is on a practical matter, not just that the districts will be, in compliance with having the right teachers in the right classrooms, but is the goal of the CTC in doing this and in putting the recommendations from 2015 sort of in place. I'm guessing it's that there are more inclusive settings for different students with different types of disabilities within the same classrooms or even within the general education setting.
Yes, so that's a really good question, Board Member Bonini. One of the ideas that the CTC responded to was the fact that everyone would have or share a common trunk of preparation. And that common trunk of preparation indicated that all teachers, gen ed and special ed, would receive this commonality of preparation in order to serve all students, whether they had whether they had disabilities or not. And so technically, by preparing all teachers with this common trunk, the idea was that everyone would have similar training and the ability to serve students in the least restrictive environment possible. And so that was part of that that idea behind that common trunk of preparation in the teacher preparation expectations. In addition to that, the idea of collaboration and having gen ed teachers and special education teachers learning the same content and expanding who they could be serving expanded the idea that we could serve students with disabilities better, in that sometimes the credential limited who we could serve, and the changes in the credential now are based on the level of need a student has versus the eligibility category or the box they were put in for eligibility alone. And so that was the idea that the work group was considering when they expanded those 3 credentials.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Mr. Cannon?
Not clear on the practical application of this, in the sense that people receive their credentials in special education, and that's basically who you are working with in this. And other than the motivation to do a good job, a better job with students, is there a legal requirement for a certain amount of, so could you, Sarah, you're nodding like you understand what I'm trying to explain, not very well.
No, you're doing a fine job. Yes, there is. So we kind of approach this from 2 different angles. There's, of course, the compliance issue where you have to be appropriately matched with your credential to the population that you're serving, which is some of what Dr. Young was speaking to, in that if the previous credentials were more limiting in the eligibilities that could be served under that credential. And so it really, I don't want to use limiting again, but it limited what we could do as far as configuration of who could serve which students based on their eligibility category. And so this allows for some students who were potentially in classes where, under the ed code options that were offered as part of flexibility as this was rolling out, they were okay to serve those students, but those are not ongoing. And so this allows for that greater level of flexibility so that we can serve students in the least restrictive environment. It also helps ensure that teachers who are working in our county right now are able to stay in their current positions. And we know with the teacher shortage, losing phenomenal teachers is not something that we want to do because of a checkbox issue. And so that certainly solves that compliance piece. The second piece is really looking at how can we support them on an ongoing basis to expand their inclusive practices. And like Dr. Young was saying, get to a place where students can be served better in broader educational environments by more educational professionals. And so that's the other side of it. So it's kind of a 2-sided solution.
Thank you, Sarah. That was very helpful to me. And as just to take the practical a little further, then to renew credentials, is it necessary then to have this kind of training and being flexible, or to serve different populations rather than the original credential you might have had?
No, so ongoing, it's, I think it's a period of 5 years. Is that every? To renew every 5 years. You pay a fee to the CTC and you can renew your credential. This expands upon their previous credentials to give them more options, but it wasn't a requirement. So it could be a requirement in their current configurations based on the population that they're serving. But this is an over and above option for education specialists who want to be able to serve a broader population. But it's not an ongoing requirement where they have to continue to engage in continuing education units or professional development. It's a time period renewal.
Thank you, Sarah.
Are there any other questions? Well, thank you very much for a very thorough presentation. Thank you. Very informative. And there is no further action on this item. Item 6B, Jeff Smith, Coordinator, District Improvement and Support, will introduce Latrice Bennett, Head of School, Oxford Day Academy, to provide the annual report from ODA. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Coordinator Smith.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Gerard, members of the board, and Superintendent McGee. I am Jeff Schmidt. I am a coordinator for District Improvement and Supports, and it is a huge honor for me tonight to introduce Ms. Latrice Bennett, the head of school of Oxford Day Academy, which is our county authorized charter school. Ms. Bennett.
I know. I'm going to try very hard to remember to click on my computer. So good evening, Good evening, Board President Gerard, members of the board, Superintendent McGee. My name is Latrice Bennett, as you all know, head of school of Oxford Academy, located in East Palo Alto, where I proudly proclaim where I'm born and raised. So love working in my backyard. It's my privilege to just report to you our annual report presentation. And you've already kind of gotten a preview of it, so we're just going to run through it. Okay. So last year, here we go. There we go. So last year when I presented, the end of the presentation, we talked about what we will focus on for the 22-23 year. And so these were our 5 main focus areas for this academic year. You'll notice the pattern or the repetition of strengthening, because that is the phase that we are in our restructuring of our school program. So we focused on strengthening systems of support, strengthening our instructional model practices, strengthening curriculum and content, implementing more extracurricular activities for our students, increasing community partnerships and engagement. So with strengthening our instructional model practices, we continue to implement our campus-wide tutorials structure. So a bit of background on that the basis of our instructional model is originated in Oxford University with their Oxford tutorial methods. And so we've essentially just built additional components around that, because we can't send 14-year-olds off for a week and just tell them, see you in a week for a tutorial. Wouldn't work. So we created additional components to that tutorial method. And so we do hold campus-wide tutorials every mid-cycle, which is every 3 weeks. And so we actually have a tutorial coming up the week of April 24th. So I'll invite you all later at the end of the presentation. We have our 4-tier curriculum packets. And so every cycle, our students are given a new curriculum packet, and then it's what they go through for the 7 weeks. And so when we were doing our reflecting last year, we realized that we needed to provide more access to our curriculum and content, given our demographic of students. And so we came to the conclusion that we would create 4 tiers of our curriculum packets. And so that is our newcomer, which we call Modified 1, our Modified Curriculum 2 packet, our grade level, and then our advanced. And so in a modified one, you might find newcomers that are literally 3 weeks to the country. They come to our school. We become this beautiful Mecca where newcomers like to attend our school. And so we embrace them, we welcome them in, and we were like, well, we got to give them an access point, an entry point to our curriculum and content. And so we have a modified newcomer curriculum packet for them to just help them acclimate to our instructional model. We might also find a low-level special education student with an IEP in that same tier. And then we have our modified 2, which is a little further up from the modified 1. And this is where most of like our students with IEPs fall into our curriculum and content. We make that accessible for them, taking into consideration all of their accommodations and modifications that are mandated. And then we have our grade level curriculum packet, and then we have advanced. And so, you know, me being like, we got to do this now. I was like, let's go, let's roll all 4 of these out. And my teachers were like, we cannot do that. And so we scaled back a little bit and we phased in the newcomer and the grade level because that was our most immediate need for 22-23. So for 23-24, we will be phasing in the modified 2 and the advanced. And then our MESH survey, which is what our school culture and climate that we have our students take about twice a year, is still reporting that our academic engagement remains 4 out of 5. And I'm gonna take a quick second to give you background on this picture here in the lower right corner. So our last end of cycle, which is what our students present as an exhibition of the mastery of their standards for the cycle. So in environmental science, they had to build their own sustainable city. And they had to give us, you know, their plan for sustainability, what they were going to do, where their allocations for water were coming from, all those things. And these students here at the bottom, they had come, I want to say 3 weeks before our cycle was ending from Guatemala. They were able to, the week after, hold their tutorial with me for 45 minutes. It was myself and Google translating them, and we figured it out. And they were able to hold their tutorial with me. They were able to open up their computers, learn to navigate the Google platform, Google Slides, Gmail. They understood what they needed to do for their end of cycle, and they presented one of the best end of cycles. And all of their peers gave them a standing ovation, and I'm gonna get a little teary because it was just so good. And it was just, it really helped us to realize that like our instructional model does work, and it does catch the students that like are usually overlooked. So yeah, we were really excited about that one. And overall, the students were really invested in this project, so it was really cool. So strengthening, oh, here goes the clicker. Strengthening systems of support. So we're looking at our academic systems of support. So our tiered levels of academic intervention, we have our response to intervention for 9th and 10th graders. They do academic RTI. So they have an extended school day, 2 days out of the week, and they do that for 9th and 10th grade. Our 4-tier curriculum packets, as mentioned before, students with 504 plans, our IAP plan, and then our IEPs. Our IAP is a tier 2 in our RTI intervention, where if a student doesn't qualify for an IEP, but you know, parents and teachers still feel that they need some type of an individualized plan, we implement an individualized academic plan. And so it's part of their SST process. And teachers are given this plan, and students are very aware of their plan. And it acts as just kind of an advocacy for them to, you know, be able to accommodate themselves to access accommodations and modifications. And so, yeah, that's our IAP and then IEPs. For behavioral, we're doing PDs on whole child approach. That is really just the basis of our philosophical approach to education is whole child. Restorative practices in the classroom, PBS practices school-wide, and then our emotional systems of support, social emotional learning coaches. So every student is assigned a SELC, and they meet with them regularly. And then they cultivate the SEL knowledge with them. And then our wellness. We saw a 30% increase this year, and it was really student driven in terms of accessing counseling services for wellness. And so we last year really wanted to make wellness visible for our students and accessible, and it helped them to accept the fact that wellness is important for all of us. There's a stigma with, Black and brown kids in terms of you don't talk about what's going on in the house. You don't meet with counselors. You're fine. You don't need therapy. But we've been able to kind of take away that connotation for wellness and really present it as like, this is resistance. This is how you add to your resistance in this world. You got to be well. And so we did see a 30% increase in counseling services that, again, those initials were being brought in by students. And so we were really, really pleased with that. Going to strengthening curriculum and content. So again, the 4-tier curriculum packets, they are CCSS and GSS aligned. Dual and concurrent enrollment continues to be a pillar for us through our partnership with Kenyatta College. Mastery-based grading system, and equitable access to curriculum and content for all learner subgroups. So this is what we focused on this year. This is what we'll continue focusing on as we continue to strengthen our curriculum and content and make sure that it's aligned. And this is the ODA teacher pathway. I'm going to take a little time to talk about near and dear to us. And so in partnership with Reach University, we secured a grant from the CTC to establish a pathway, essentially to allow classified staff members to become certificated, as well as any of our students that are graduating from our school wanting to get right into a teaching pathway. They are able to do so in partnership with Reach University while working with us on campus and going through and learning our instructional model as they usually end up being like a CELC or a teacher's aide. And so we will just be working to really establish that pathway and make sure that, we really are building from the community, anyone that comes in and wants to, start teaching and want a credential, we have a pathway that is available for them. Candidates, again, so target is for ODA is classified staff. And then we also financially support new college graduates wanting to teach, at our school. So if we advertise to new graduates at San Francisco State, San Jose State, whoever wants to come in and teach, we say, hey, we've got a pathway for you, come on in, and we pay for it. So that's been a really fun conversation when talking about salaries. Move on. Increasing community partnership engagement. So we have a community practice with SMCOE for street data, which has been just fantastic. And we find ourselves just really aligned with that practice. Community of practice with neighboring high schools, so EPAA, KIPP, TIDE for post-secondary options for different learner subgroups. Continuing partnerships with Kenyatta College, continuing partnerships with the Boys and Girls Club, and with Silicon Valley Urban Debate League. Going back to the community of practices, I remember when I was first transitioning into this role, I met with Superintendent McGee and she asked, like, what do you need? And I said, I need to not be on an island. I need to not be isolated. And she was really intentional in getting me connected with the surrounding high schools. And so just really thankful for that leadership and guidance and making sure that, my needs were met. And so thank you for that. Our extracurricular activities. So this year we were able to offer soccer, volleyball, speech and debate, Spanish debate, moot court, and internships. And so I like to joke. So I became an athletic director, speech and debate coach, and a coordinator for internships. And so, as it goes with charter schools, it's fine. But so we're super excited to be able to offer these extracurricular for our students. And again, so that lower picture, the one where, the boys are posing. So this was them at their first speech tournament. So they do impromptu speech. We were able to secure bilingual judges for them because, Silicon Valley, they were just like, come and do impromptu. And I was like, I have students, they need bilingual judges. And so we were able to advocate for them and they were able to secure bilingual judges and really, again, provide that equitable access point or entry point for our students. The student there on the far left, he had been in our school or really in the States for about a month and was able to jump right in and join some extracurriculars. And so we are super excited about that. Our boys soccer team continues to be this really beautiful, pretty quick assimilation into our culture. When students are joining us and coming to the States, they go right to the soccer team. And I think it's just so beautiful. And so we have soccer year round. We know, we're in a division, so the season ends, but we really have soccer year round because it's just such a quick, again, assimilation, and they fit right in, they feel right at home. And so we continue to have that volleyball there, and then some of just the college tours we've done. This was just our Oxford summer convening trip. So every summer we take about 7 to 10 students to Oxford University to just solidify our instructional practices, to give them a chance to see where it originates, to just immerse them in that culture for a week. They meet with Oxford tutors, they hold tutorials with Oxford tutors, and they're a student essentially of Oxford University for about a week. So before we went to Oxford, we took them to London. They had a great time. The staff went for some tea and yeah, they had a grand time. And so we are figuring out the details for that trip this year. And so we are appreciative that we are able to continue to do things like this to really just kind of expand perspective for our students in a way that is really going to, change the trajectory for them. Camp Lead and Unity Day. So our students were able to attend Camp Lead. I think we've done it now for a while. We had a break for COVID, and I had expressed wanting to use this opportunity to kind of open up the school year with some team building, some community building. And so we held Camp Lead at the beginning of the year, and it really just helped our community become even closer. And then they followed it up with the Unity Day about a month ago. And so it took a lot of nagging to mandate the field trip. And then they complained for about a day, and then they loved it, didn't want to leave. And then they bugged me all year about when they were going back. And so we look forward to that trip in August again. It really has just become a way that we open up the school year and open community, and just communicate to our students what our theme is for the community that year. This year it was extending bridges and making sure that no one's left behind. And so it's just a really beautiful way to be able to, get them to start building their community early on in the school year. And this is the part that I always like. So this is our class of 2023. So we have 93% of our seniors on track to graduate. %15 of our graduating seniors are newcomers. 90% of our seniors are first generation college bound. 99% of our seniors identify as Latinx, 1% identify as African American. And then for post-secondary options, 93% of our graduating seniors have 2-year post-secondary options, and which we are looking to really solidify those for the students that are not going to 4 years. We really want them to leave with a plan. And so you're going somewhere is what we've been telling them. It doesn't matter where, you're going somewhere once you leave us. And then 77% of them applied to 4-year colleges, 100% were accepted to at least 2. And that's the makeup of our class of 2023. And then this will just pop on its own. Some of the places they were accepted to. One of our girls just heard back from Duke, so I didn't get to put Duke on there, but she's planning to attend the Chinese school in China for Duke University, which is really cool. We're really excited for our seniors as they're making their post-secondary options. These are our highlighted celebrations for 22-23. So just being able to secure the CTC teacher grant, our multi-tiered systems of support grant that I worked with Jeff with, thank you, Jeff, to secure. And so we're really looking to just establish our multi-tiered systems of support. We do a lot of the work already. I think it just goes unnamed. And so this will be good for all of our stakeholders and our teachers to understand, our vision in terms of social emotional wellness and skills and building that in students. New facilities, we're nearing a close and deal with the neighboring district to be able to move into one of their facilities because we're outgrowing our space. And so our students are really excited. We don't have to kick them out at 3 o'clock anymore. They love hanging around. And so we're excited to offer them a place to just kind of hang out when they need to. And then our WASC 6-year accreditation that we earned June of 2022. So our team put a lot of work into that. It was a lot of like, I love you so much, thank you. And they really just kind of put pen to the paper, didn't complain. And so I was just really thankful. First year having to lead them through a self-study was a lot, but we got through it and we got the 6-year accreditation. So we were really excited about that. And then our highlighted opportunities for 23-24. So our satellite data versus our street data. So the narrative that they tell versus the narrative that we tell. I often kind of lament that because we do not turn students away, there is, an element to us having to, in lack of better terms, sacrifice our satellite data because we know that our juniors testing that are coming in, pretty new to the States, it's going to impact scores or what have you, but we don't turn students away. And so really looking at, while we're working on that data, how do we allow our street data that we're gathering to tell the story about Oxford Academy. Our English, our EL attendance and truancy. So this has been another battle of ours, in terms of newcomers that do come in, there's a percentage of them. And what we gathered through our empathy interviews was that they're coming over and they're usually going right to a guardian, not necessarily a parent. And so it's an aunt, an uncle, a friend. And what happens is that guardian says, welcome, go find a job, or you have to go back. And these are students that are 15, 16, that should be fully invested in school, kind of facing the economic crisis of, I got to help pay rent or I got to go back. And so we've been thinking about like, well, how do we meet the economic need? So that is our 3 E's initiative. It's the Equitable Education and Economic Initiative, looking to see if there's a way that we can meet the need for our students so that they can be fully invested in school with very clear, agreements in terms of 100% attendance, full immersion in an ELD program, different things that we're strategizing right now in terms of creating that initiative. So it's in the works. Continued academic intervention, making sure that the curriculum we're using, is really helpful in terms of closing that academic gap for our students in that 9th and 10th grade year. And then developing highly qualified teachers. So we're building within versus recruiting out. This is really important for us because our instructional model is so unique. And so sometimes teachers coming in that have been, through public school for a really long time, they kind of look at us weird, like, what is this instructional model? And so we really value being able to build within. So again, like have students go from being a student to our teacher pathway, graduating and coming back to teach our instructional model that they've already been through is really important to us. And we have a few students that have graduated that are in that pathway right now. And I believe that is the end of my presentation. I'm going to open the floor for questions.
Do we have any questions? Ms. Benini?
I can go first. Thank you so much for the presentation. I just have a couple questions. One is just a kind of a numbers question, and then one's like forward looking. So I'm just curious, I'm not aware of how many students total are in the school and how that varies by class. I know you should roll it in.
Yeah, we have about 108 students. Yep. And so that is pretty evenly spread throughout the classes, except for our 9th grade. It was a little lower this year.
Okay. And then I am not as familiar with the instructional model, but it sounds really interesting. I'm just curious. I know that you have students who in the last couple of years, rolled into the college experience. And I'm just curious if you have any feedback or any information on how they are doing, how they're faring in the, maybe more traditional school model?
Sure. Yeah, I was like, well, that's my pitch in terms of you all maybe not being so aware of the instructional model. It's my pitch at the end, don't worry. It's my invitation. Anyway, so our students that are in the universities right now, the retention rate is pretty strong. We only know of 2 of our graduates that ended up going back to maybe like a 2-year to kind of, and that was due to maybe an economic need or just like the college not being a good fit. Other than that, the students report that being able to cultivate their independence at such a young, early age because of our instructional model really helped them with management and at the university level. The way that we tailor our curriculum and content to them in 7-week chunks that they just go through with due dates, it really mimics the syllabus that you'll find in college. And so we were very intentional with, you know, the structure of our day and our model to really be, so it would familiarize the students with the university instructional model in some sorts, in terms of kind of navigating your content, meeting due dates, having that choice. And so we really believe that cultivating academic pursuit has a lot to do with how much choice you give a student. And so we structure that choice some, you know, because they're still young. But yeah, they are reporting that they find themselves engaged in the schoolwork where they see other peers kind of hesitate to engage, they can jump right in. And they find that the workload, in their words, you know, they say, you were doing too much with your, you know, your assignments because it's not that hard in college. And I'm like, all right, well, at least you're prepared. So yeah, they report that they're having to find time.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Mr. Torres?
Hi, thank you. If you could elaborate a little bit more on the internships and what the students were able to do with that?
Sure. So part of our one of our pillars of growth for our students is civil engagement and community engagement. And so starting 11th grade, our students have to have a year-long internship. And so we have kind of like 12 slots at the Boys and Girls Club they can go, and they have just a variety of internships that they can do, from tech to, you know, 3D printing to cooking. We have a couple of students that are cooking in the kitchen. We have one student that has been cooking in the kitchen, and he helped provide meals to families all throughout COVID. And so he's been doing that for about 3 years. He started really early. Yeah, students are allowed to pick their internships. So we had some students partner with a local like women's group to provide women like feminine products and kind of like, I guess, government information, just know your rights kind of a thing for women in need. We have some students that are in like the MAGIC program, which is like catered to girls in tech. What else do they do? A lot. Some of them find jobs within our school in terms of, you know, helping teachers, or we had one group run like a morning ELD that was voluntary, but they taught the ELD classes. And then our 12th graders have to do a year-long impact project. So it's really like their community service. And so they have to make a proposal for their project. They can continue to work with the organization that they worked with 11th grade, or can like entirely make up an impact project on their own. And some of those include like campus beautification that they like to do. We have a student culture and school culture and climate group. And so they're in charge of creating the school events, fundraising for it, attending our board meetings, reporting out on school culture and climate, providing metrics that they are, you know, using to measure school culture and climate, and report that data out to our board. And so, yeah, we have a bunch of different, internships the students engage in.
Yeah, I love all of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
One more question.
Yeah.
I know you have a teacher pathway. Are you looking to expand that to other options or pathways for other careers at some point?
You elaborate a little bit when you
Yeah,
say other.
because I know like Tide has a pathway as well, one for business and I think another one for engineering or something.
Oh, I
and-
see. Is their pathway for
Other career options.
other career
than-
options for students or
Yeah.
for?
For students, yes.
Oh, okay. So our ODA pathway, I mean, yes, that is for teaching specifically to our instructional model. So it's kind of like really building a community school, making sure that they are from the community and then coming back to our school. We haven't really thought too much about other pathways, just because I feel like there are a lot of other entry points into our programming where students can get connected to, a mentor in any field. And so, yeah, that pathway, I think we're just focusing on, students that want to become teachers and want to come back to their city, and teach.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Camacho?
Thank you for being here. I do want to start with, you kind of really went quickly over your WASC accreditation and your 6-year accreditation. That is wonderful and amazing and all the things. So congratulations to you all for working toward that. Having been through a couple of WASC cycles, I know it asks a lot of your entire staff. And so congratulations on that. You spoke a little bit about being on an island, and so I'm really curious about that one. We always go back to the original intent of the charter law, which was to take innovative practices that are successful, and this is successful. We're seeing these graduates that you're producing. Is there kind of conversation with the local district or with other schools of how we bring this kind of model and this kind of instructional approach to other schools?
There's been some talk. Again, I think coming into this role last year, there was a lot of restructuring, a lot of rebuilding that had to happen, to be quite frank. And so that's kind of where our work was last year in terms of just rebuilding relationships, kind of reintroducing, our programming into the community. And so from there, we've really been kind of a doors open approach in terms of come see what we're doing. If you need PD, if you need materials, we have it all. So come in and take a look. And we've had some people engage in that. And so I think we are starting to find ourselves in more collaboration with neighboring schools, but we're tiptoeing. We don't want to go in guns blazing. So, but yeah, we're finding some type of collaboration that is happening, and we just, hope for more in the future.
That's wonderful to hear. From an authorization perspective, what year are we in? It was a 5-year authorization, correct, for the county office? Do you recall what year we're in for that?
That law changed and it's now 7 years. I
That was-
believe.
So we're up for authorization, I think 2027.
Yeah, because during COVID, the terms changed
Okay,
and extended. So
great. Thank you. Oh, and then I wanted to just real quick on the mesh data. So you do 2 times per year, is that correct? What else is on that mesh? I'm just curious.
So yeah, there's academic, so engagement, it's academics just in terms of what you're learning, and then school engagement, like do you feel safe at school? So safety's on there. Community, like do you feel connectedness to your community? And then their own idea about how they're developing as a learner.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, as much as we all work in schools, sometimes we don't check in with the students of how they're receiving it, right? And so I appreciate that that's built into your model of regular check-in and them being open to give honest feedback, and you all responsive to it.
They are not shy about giving honest feedback. I'll tell you that.
Thank you.
It's the beauty of a small charter school. Nothing gets past us. Sometimes it's annoying for them, but the way that they are able to advocate for themselves and really just, we like to look at ourselves as academic coaches, and really just helping them develop their skills and cultivate their agency to really just get what they need. And so we are relationship based, and every kid has someone at the school, and it's really nice to see.
That was the perfect way to end that. Every kid has someone. That's amazing. Thank you.
Mr. Cannon?
Well, Ms. Bennett, I just wanted to relate my respect for your work. Charter schools sound good to many of us. But as a practical matter, I looked at, when I was a school administrator in a regular school district, the amount of support that I had from people in the district office was tremendous. And I was allowed to focus on my school. And so my respect for you kind of being, I don't know if this is fair to characterize, on your own. Big job and congratulations. As Mr. Camacho mentioned, I had written down, I want to congratulate you on your accreditation because that's more than opinions and cheerleading. That's a real accomplishment, as we know. So congratulations on that. I wonder if you could talk just a little bit more. I think you mentioned 30% and mental health, but I forget exactly how to describe that. But I was interested in getting a picture in my mind of how that plays out in school, what those actual services look like, and how you feel about that.
Sure. So our kind of like all applied approach to mental health and wellness is that first point of contact is their social emotional learning coach. I feel like that's like the strongest relationship that our students develop is with that coach. From there, the coach is able to determine whether or not they may need more services, right? More support. And so after conversations with their SELCs, they're encouraged to reach out to ACS, which is Adolescents Counseling Services.
I'm sorry, to what?
ACS, Adolescents Counseling Services. That's who we contract with for our to provide our counseling services. They're on site. And so then they go through a referral process. They submit their paperwork for referral. They go through the process, kind of initial meeting, and then they establish the frequency of how they'd like to meet with that counselor. And so from there, they just, create a relationship with the counselor, and the counselor takes care of all things wellness, essentially, that the social emotional learning coach doesn't really have clearance to handle with students in terms of diagnoses and, support plans for wellness.
I remember funding always was a problem to get counseling services. And how do do you have adequate, you always use more, I suppose, but you feel comfortable with your resources for that?
We do. We're a smaller school. And so right now the resources, they're efficient or sufficient, I should say. One of the opportunities, I'll call it, that we had discussed with Adolescents Counseling Service is, again, dealing with access, right? We have a lot of students that are bilingual in progress, as we put it, so they're learning English. And so they do need, a Spanish speaking counselor. And so, just going with them saying, hey, we need you to provide us with bilingual counselors. We can't refer out for students, who cannot access you because of a language barrier, because school is kind of the safe haven for them. So if I send them home, there's no guarantee that they're going to reach out on their own. And they've been really responsive to that. And so I think that's in terms of sufficiency, just making sure that, all of our students are able to access those services.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I just have a couple about the counselors. How many students per counselor do you currently have?
14 per counselor.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's great considering what some of our other schools have 200 or 300 per counselor. So
Yeah.
they're very, very lucky.
Yeah.
To
definitely.
be able to have that.
Yeah.
And with the referrals with the kids that do need help and do need more mental health services, how does that work exactly?
In terms of the referral process, or?
Yeah, what the process?
Sure. So it happens a couple ways. A teacher can refer, a parent can refer, a student can refer, I will refer. Essentially any stakeholder aside from the board can refer a student for services. We meet with the student and we may say, like, this is what we're seeing, we're concerned. And then from there, the student, depending on the circumstance, right? Because we do have circumstances where we use counseling as a discipline action, right? Because we don't suspend. And so we may say, like, this is an area of concern for us. We need you to start meeting with the counselor to go over coping skills, to go over, different things. And so they're pretty receptive to that. And I think, again, it's because we spend a lot of time really developing genuine relationships with our students. And so again, it's not looked at as I'm trying to infringe on your, individuality or assert my authority. It's really, this is me helping you. This is me concerned. And our students are really receptive to that. And so, yeah, we just refer out, we have conversations with our students. They're usually pretty receptive. We don't really get any students that just outright refuse. And then they just, again, establish the frequency at which either we would like for them to meet with the counselor, or if it's, a specific circumstance, or the frequency that they feel comfortable with.
Thank you. And so you currently have 108 students. Is that full capacity for your current facility?
Yes. It's full capacity, and we are projecting a little higher next year. So in terms of like what our facilities are able to offer us in terms of classroom spaces, we're kind of grown out of that.
So are you looking for, I'm just being curious now. Are you looking for a larger overall facility or an addition to facility?
Great question. So ideally, right, a larger facility where we can house everyone. Since we already are a split campus, our students are used to that. And so we've had our eye on that Green Street just educational center that Sequoia has for a while. And so that is what we put in our request for facilities, Prop 39, which they were able to confirm with us that we can have, and we just went in lieu. So we didn't actually do Prop 39. So it would still be a split campus. It's about a 4-minute walk from our 994 campus to our new main campus. And so we'll be split, but in the coming years, we are always looking for just a larger place to house, to be just housed in one facility. But for now, we'll be a split campus.
Well, I did visit Oxford Day Academy. It's been now a few years, but it was an amazing experience and I was so impressed. And I had a student guide
Mhm.
it was a student and he took me all over and it was wonderful. So I highly encourage all my fellow board members to go for a visit because
Yeah.
it's well worth it.
That's my pitch. So I've been talking to Superintendent McGee about getting the board members out there. And so she's gotten a couple dates to me. I implore you all to come and visit. Again, we're doors open. And we do have a tutorial week coming up, the week of April 24th. And so if you're able to make any of those days, the 27th is probably the best day just because, again, allowing choice. We allow students to the week prior select their session dates for their tutorial. Most of them like to choose Thursday because they have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for extra prep. And so, yeah, Thursdays are usually the fullest day for tutorials. And so about like any time of the hour that you come in for the day, you'll find your tutorial to go and tour, or a couple if you want to stay for extended period of time.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the report. It's always very exciting to hear about what they're all accomplishing and how well they're doing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And also, if you do come, we will have an extensive conversation and I'll have another slides presentation regarding our instructional model, just so you're more aware of what's going on.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 7A, Superintendent McGee will present an update on San Mateo County Office of Education 2022 through 2027 strategic plan and stakeholder engagement. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Superintendent McGee?
Thank you, Board President Gerard, members of the board. Going to do a pretty quick overview of where we are with our strategic planning process. We're nearing the end, getting my slides up here. And part of the focus, what we've been doing over the last few months has been on stakeholder engagement. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as it relates to where we end up with the final plan. One thing to note is that we set out intentionally with this plan to be to create something that is concise and accessible to as many people as possible. We did not want to end up with a 25 or 30-page strategic plan that we will have an internal document when we end this for our own guidance and accountability that we will be happy to share with anyone who wants to see that. But for the purposes of public release, our strategic plan will be pretty streamlined and concise. So in the stakeholder engagement that we've been doing, we have identified a number of community partners, and our consultant Meg Aminto has been conducting individual interviews with them, much like you were all interviewed by Meg early on in the process. And we've been collecting all that data and sort of categorizing it for what feedback we can easily take and fold into the plan without too much, trouble or effort. Then there's sort of a yellow colored set of feedback where we're going to need to discuss it and understand what the feedback is seeking, and whether we feel like it's something we should be including in the larger plan. And then there's another section where we'll probably not as relevant to what we're trying to accomplish with this particular goal. But one of the pieces of feedback we've gotten is that our vision and core practices very clear for everyone. I think that we've gotten a lot of good feedback again on this. And just to state that this is from the 2016 strategic planning process where we evolved our vision and mission statement. We have evolved the core practices, which are here. Since 2016, we've added accountability and sustainability to the list. And we're having a deep conversation about cultural humility and whether we feel that's captures the right space for where we are. We did a lot of cultural humility training. It's a very specific training with a very specific definition and mindset that we did pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, but many of our newer employees over the last few years haven't been exposed as much to that training. So we are going to be working next year as an organization through sort of the lens of culture, humility, and whether it's the right space for us to land as far as claiming as a core practice. Of course, culture, humility is involved in everything that we do, but we might want something that's a little bolder, a little stronger, but we want to feel like we can really walk the walk. If we're going to put it up there, that we need to be able to have action behind it. So again, we have 4 strategic bucket areas, focus areas. Originally, when we started working on this plan back in, gosh, I don't even remember when we started working on this, a year ago, I'll just say, just for ease. We had advocacy and partnership, the community piece is sort of our first bucket. And then we went to SMCOE staff, students, and then workforce. We reversed the order and put students first in the strategic area because we think that's really important. Because first and foremost, everything we do is about students and our school districts. So each strategic area has objectives, and we've identified what those objectives are. Certainly, we're supporting teachers, site and district leaders. I think one thing that's important that did not have as much focus and priority in a prior strategic plan was the quality mental health and social emotional supports for students, that is really taking a front seat in our work. And then the next objective there about dismantling silos is something we've been trying to practice inside the county office ourselves. And you saw a great demonstration of that tonight with the bridge authorization work that the teams across the county office work together to accomplish. But in our districts and in our education system, we really believe that dismantling the silos that separate students with disabilities and multilingual learners from accessing full tier 1 services or general education services of all other students and having access to high quality learning environments is priority. And so that is taking shape in this strategic area. And then the tiered supports for districts is about those tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 services. We find that a lot of times districts are focusing really on tier 3, putting lots and lots of money and resources on those students who have the highest needs. But really, we know this in our systems across the board, that if we invested in proactive services, for instance, if we were investing everything we could in prenatal and 0 to 5 supports for young children, that down the road in their lifetimes, they wouldn't need perhaps the amounts of intervention and resources if their lives don't go the way that we would all want them to go. So that tier 1 service in districts really doesn't get enough attention. What are we providing to all students? And so we really focus on that in our MTSS conversations. That's the multi-tiered system of support, which is tier 1, 2, and 3 for different needs of students. Did I miss a slide? Because that's 1, and that says 3, and this says 4. So whatever 2 was, I think it's SMCOE. The SMCOE goals are internal goals for our workforce, which is actually really innovative and exciting. We're going to be moving into a system where all staff have a personalized professional development plan. And we're really focusing and prioritizing internal promotion, internal growth, internal career pathways. And we will be adding some additional staff in HR to be able to support that work. So we're very excited about that. But our third strategic bucket is building the workforce for student success, which you're all have been very supportive and invested in. It's our, recruiting, retaining, and developing a workforce. But the most important thing is that we bring in culturally and linguistically diverse individuals from the communities to help to provide representation for all the students in our classrooms and increase the level of quality and experience that all students have in our schools. And so in order to do that, our second objective there is much like Board Member Torres was asking about how do you expand those pathways. You were asking about students and their learning, but we are looking at adults as student learners, right? And they're trying to access their undergraduate educations and get their credentials and find all the ways in which they can get into the workforce that doesn't create so many barriers that they give up or they don't even try to start to begin with. So that work is really important. And then strategic bucket 4 is strengthening advocacy and partnerships. So how do we improve processes for getting broader community input? We're definitely still working on a Cradle to Career initiative across all of San Mateo County. The idea that when a child is born in San Mateo County, there is a map and a pathway supports and resources to get them from birth all the way to college graduation. So if you're born in San Mateo County, we know we can get you to this place, is the vision of a Cradle to Career initiative. And then developing advocacy strategies. We'd love to be in partnership with the board on this, as well as addressing funding inequities, which we can do through either legislation or action here, right here in the county, through different mechanisms. So the stakeholder engagement process that we've been going through, we've been doing individual interviews with district and community partners, including obviously our school districts, our community college partners, our early learning partners, our mental health, behavioral health, and public health partners. And all of that has been being led by Mega Minto as our consultant. We have had some focus group meetings through various nonprofit groups that we assemble. We've had a few sessions. Well, we've had a lot of sessions last fall and winter with staff, and lots of staff members were involved in the strategic planning committees. And we had a steering committee, and we've had a few staff meetings, either all one SMCOE, just to provide some overview. We have a website. All the materials are accessible to the employees on the website. And then we are very excited about the fact that Associate Superintendent Schaus is leading this targeted strategic planning process for each of our school programs. That's all happening right now. So our court and community programs are in strategic planning, special education, as well as our related services and early start. So the Ann Campbell Center is also doing that, and they will complete that process on May 31st. And on that day, we're going to celebrate the conclusion of their planning, have a barbecue out at the Ann Campbell Center. We'll be sending out an invitation to all of you to join us. And we may launch on that day, have a little pre-launch of our SMCOE strategic plan. We might have some materials to share out on that day. So that'll be sort of a landmark day for this year. And then the other stakeholder engagement that we really pay attention to are the staff surveys that we've been conducting since 2018. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that right now, because we're just about ready to launch our new survey for this year. So in 2016, one of the goals that came out of the strategic planning process was that all SMCOE staff will complete a survey designed to gather data on employee satisfaction and get feedback on the culture and the climate so that we can take actions to keep improving that. We launched our first survey in 2018, and we've done one each year with the exception of 2020, which, as you know, March and April of 2020 was a very difficult time to stop and take a staff survey. So we skipped that year, but we have data on all 4 years now, and we're launching the 2023 survey next Monday. When we gather the results, we analyze them in our cabinet and extended cabinet and department meetings. On the right, you can see a series of questions we used this past year for the different teams to reflect on the data and make meaning for their own work and inside their own teams. And then we look at the staff survey data to set for the leadership to set our goals with that data in mind, and then we take action on the feedback. So as an example, in 2018, the first survey that we did gave us data from our school staff that they were concerned about some lack of training. They had some safety concerns around facilities, and they felt loosely connected to the larger organization because they're offsite. They're not here in this building and they do different work, but our actions in response to that were that we increased the amount of paraeducator training provided. There were facility upgrades on the campuses. We started doing our SMCOE events inclusive of the school sites, because prior to this, for instance, at the winter luncheon, it would be during the middle of the day here, and no school site people could participate in that. So we started planning events that were at times where everyone could participate in some way at the same time. So that's been really positive, and I think helped us feel more of the one SMCOE culture. In 2019, the survey showed us that 54% of staff agreed that there was a strong commitment to teamwork and collaboration, but 54% is just barely 50, just barely half. And that's really not where we want to be with a sense of collaboration and teamwork. So we really upped the messages on collaboration and working across communities. And it was in that year, we merged the two divisions of instructional services and student services into a single division. And I think that has really panned out in producing amazing work. It's taken a while, but we're really now starting to get our groove with that reorganization. And then in 2018, we also learned from the survey that 45% of our staff agreed that the level of communication that we were putting out met their needs, which again is less than 50%. So we started changing the way we communicated and doing a lot more regular communication. And we archived all that on our website. And we certainly are doing monthly one SMCOE meetings, which, all of this takes ongoing work and ongoing improvement. So it's been successful, but we still have ways to, we can always do better with communication. It's one of those things you can never communicate enough. So we're looking forward to the 2023 survey, as it will continue to inform our strategic plan. But last year's survey, we had a 37% of respondents said they felt both supported and connected to the organization, and 25% said they feel neither connected or supported. So you've got sort of both ends of the spectrum, and there's a whole big percentage of folks sort of in the middle. But it told us that we need to do more to continue to help people be seen, be heard, be valued, be recognized. And we've been working on that all year long. We also learned in 2022 that 64% of respondents felt they had sufficient opportunities for professional development, which isn't terrible on a survey like this, but still we have so much room to grow there. So this is driving the idea that we want to create this professional development framework in the new strategic plan to guide personalized professional growth, and then to develop stronger routines, learning routines for our new employees, that we'd like to do ongoing trainings for new employees throughout an entire first year while they're here, and not just hit them during the first couple of weeks and then kind of let them figure out the rest on their own. So we're also looking forward to building that into our practices. Oh, here it is. I guess it's here. The number 2, embody one SMCOE vision and values. This is where we are hoping to strengthen our onboarding and professional learning, do better and more targeted communication about ourselves, so that people have real data to understand how we're doing. Do that professional development framework, celebrate our culture, and then We are undergoing right now through the Personnel Commission a compensation and classification study, which hasn't been done for more than 15 years. And that is really not a great stat right there. So we want to develop systems where those job classifications remain current in an ongoing way. And we don't ever get to a place where it's been 15 years since we've updated some job descriptions and things like that. So here, I guess in 2022, respondents are, I mean, the employees are still saying that they want more information. While 42% had information they needed and to make decisions, 52% satisfied with the communication methods. These are still under 50, really about 50% of our staff. So we just have a lot of continuing work to keep improving. And if our staff doesn't give us the feedback and information back about how things are working and what's not working, we really don't know how to improve. So it's an important relationship among all the staff that we communicate with each other. In our equity work, we last year had about a third of our staff not seeing as strong a tie between our equity goals and their personal work. So we have been working really hard this year. We have a new equity statement that defines and reflects our commitment. We worked very hard on it. It may not be where we land for 5 years, so we expect that we'll probably improve and strengthen it year by year as we continue to grow and strengthen. And we have developed an equity team that has membership across all the divisions and levels of staff as part of the input and way forward. And then this year, we've been working with Dr. Lori Watson at multiple levels in different ways. She's been a great leader for us. And we've done all of our leadership seminars with her this year with all the managers. She's done trainings for all staff. She's done makeup trainings for people who've missed, and she's doing deeper dives for people who want to do more. And we're going to be working even more deeply with her next year. So about how do we set up actionable, concrete goals around equity inside the County Office of Ed that we can hold ourselves accountable to. So this is our equity statement, and we've broken it down into those 4 sort of objectives about interrupting inequitable practices and replacing them with equity-driven, transparent systems. There's a lot of work going on here at the county office that's accomplishing these goals, but we also need to do a better job of communicating what those are and what the impacts are. So that's kind of an overview of where we are right now. We'd love to have any feedback or questions from you tonight. And then we expect that within the next couple of weeks, we'll have a schedule for our final draft plan and when we're going to launch it out publicly. And then we'll have a conversation with you about how you want to be involved in the launch of the new strategic plan.
Are there any questions or comments? No? Mr. Cannon?
Tremendously ambitious and exciting program. And the idea that you're tackling all of these problems that you got from the surveys is very encouraging, and that you're following up on the concerns, because it's so easy to do a strategic plan, as we know, all of us know, being involved in these things. You get so busy doing other things that some of the things fall by the wayside that you intended with great sincerity to do. And I appreciate your following up on all this stuff.
You, Mr. Torres?
Yes, just out of curiosity, what were the committees for the strategic planning?
So the committees were broken down by the strategic buckets. So each bucket had a committee. There were about 15 to 20 folks on each committee. And then we had a representative leaders from each committee on the steering committee. There was a lot of work that happened among all those committees between probably time is not my, knowing when things happen is not my forte right now, but I think, July through December, we really worked hard on those committees.
Thank you. Looks great. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Last call. Okay, thank you very much, Superintendent McGee.
Thank you.
Item 7B are superintendent's comments. Superintendent McGee, do you have any comments?
I do have a few. Tonight, I want to begin by, move this out of my way here, welcoming our newest board member, Hugo Torres. Just such a pleasure to have you in place. And boy, you just seamlessly got in there and no one would ever know this was your first board meeting. So welcome. And I look forward to seeing you, Board Member Torres and Board Member Bonini tomorrow night at the College of San Mateo President's Advocacy Council dinner. That should be a nice event. And then I just want to shout out the Bridge Authorization Team for all their collaboration. I love that they also called out the business team because really everything we do is backed up by the business and they don't often get called out like that. So that is just the way in which our people are thinking right now, which is really fantastic. When we shared the bridge authorization work we're doing here, because we've actually gotten almost 230 teachers into the pipeline going into, starting on the process. And when it's been shared at various state meetings, people are like, wow, you're really doing that. And it's clear that our teams here are implementing like a rare level of collaboration with clear and effective results. Because a lot of other counties haven't even really gotten off the ground with this work. And we've made a great first run at it. So I'm very proud of the work and the leaders doing the work. So thank you to them. Tonight, the administrators or the I don't even know what, all of a sudden I'm going blank on what AXA stands for, but it's the what the heck does AXA stand for?
Association for California School
Administrators. Yeah, AXA. So they are celebrating tonight their annual leadership awards. And we had several leaders across the county being recognized in different categories. And I want to really call out Dr. Shantara Moore in the South San Francisco Unified School District, who is our Region 5 Superintendent of the Year. She's an amazing colleague. I have tremendous respect for her, and I'm just so thrilled that she is representing our region this year as a Superintendent of the Year. I was going to do an update tonight on the board policy next steps, but our agenda got very busy, so I pulled it off and just said I just mentioned it in comments. But the goal there is to, and I actually missed an email from our CSBA leader there, Tazita Stewart's, but I did get back to her this week, and we're making sure we've got everything that we need to have on our end inside the platform completed. And our goal was originally to bring the packet to the board at the next board meeting, April 19th. And I haven't heard from her as to whether that's doable right now, but I'm hoping that it is, because we've got a June 1st deadline that we want to have all those policies uploaded into the platform and live in a digital format, because if we go past June 1st, then we have to actually they release their next update on June 15th. And so that will mess up everything that we've done. So right now we've got everything to a space. And so if we can just get those policies updated, uploaded into the platform, then the board can go back and pull down and review any policies and make changes along the way. But if we try and do that right now, it's going to interfere with that June 1st deadline. So I'm going to follow up. I hope to hear from her, Tazita, by tomorrow, and then I'll follow up with the board policy subcommittee so that we can all kind of align what we need to do next. Just kudos to our school staff. They're on break this week, so I hope they're out watching movies and camping and doing all these great things that refresh the spirit. And then I do want to give a very rare shout out. Do I get to give to my alma mater, San Diego State? But I get an opportunity to do that right now. So amazing that they made it all the way to the NC2A basketball final game. And they gave it a good shot, and they had a nice little run in the second half. Kind of got everybody's heart going a little bit, but they finished second, and it's pretty amazing. So that was fun for the family. And then for all those observing religious and cultural traditions this week, next week, just wishing everyone a peaceful and restorative spring holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8A, Superintendent McGee will provide background information, and then the board will discuss and potentially act on the appointment of a San Mateo County Office of Education member to the Special Education Local Plan Area, SELPA, Community Advisory Committee. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Superintendent McGee?
Thank you. This item is a response to a request from board member Benini, I think back in November, about whether the board might consider appointing a local member to the Community Advisory Committee. That's largely a parent group that supports special education goals and implementation across the county, and is an advisory board to the SELPA governing board. And so we had never done this before. And I engaged, first I worked with board member Benini to make sure that we were hitting the mark on what the request was. And then I went back to our leaders, both Sarah Notch and Dr. Young, and we worked over several months researching and learning about how we would go about doing this, because our population is so unique, and also trying to really define which programs we would be representing. So we came to a great solution in the end of bringing forward to you a very qualified staff member, Zoni Boyer, who's here tonight. You know, if you want to ask questions of either Zoni or Sarah about the ways in which Zoni is really well qualified to represent the parents and families and staff of all of our school programs, we feel like she is really touching all the different programs in the work that in the inclusion work that she's doing. And not only that, but she's interested and willing to serve. So we put forward her name as an appointee, and that's sort of the background on this item. I don't know if you would add anything to that, Sarah or Zoni.
Thank you, Superintendent McGee, for capturing that so well. I think the only thing that I wanted to add is that the research that Superintendent McGee spoke to over the course of a couple of months was really reaching out to our partners across the or our counterparts across the state. So I engaged with the SECO group, which is Special Education Administrators of County Offices, so my counterparts. And Dr. Young reached out to the SELPA Administrators Association, and we found that it's a pretty common practice. Vast majority of our county offices have staff members who are serving as liaisons and helping to bring the parent communities together and get them, provide them with access to education and empowerment and information. And so I just wanted to add that one element, that this is not something that's out of the norm. It's actually a really well-functioning solution that we're finding is working across the state.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Ms. Panini?
I just have a couple of comments. First, thank you for making going through the process for gathering the information. I really appreciate that, having been engaged with the SELPA and the CAC for a number of years. One of the reasons, well, the first reason that I raised it was when I reread the ed code, realized that it includes county offices in our role as LEAs. So making the appointment is actually mandated in some ways. And then I just also wanted to make the point that another reason I raised it is that for years, I think the SELPA and they've been doing a great job in trying to spread the word about why it's important to have appointees to the CAC. And I can never reiterate enough that when I was on a district board, I did not realize that was one of the roles mandated in the ed code for district board members to appoint members to the CAC. And so I've been trying to raise awareness around that. And this is another piece of that, because I think that we set a good example for districts, and then we're talking about it. So hopefully they hear us and go, oh, we need to do that. And, the other part is that a few years ago, the SELPA created this great packet, this recruitment packet, that, they could reach out to the various, in the, I think, second paragraph of our board memo, it lists all the various people who the ed code says can serve in this capacity. I think ideally it's a broad range of people. It is true that it is by and large parents, but it does list various others, including teachers. And actually think that Zoni is great because she fits a lot of the categories, actually. I do hope that maybe going forward in the future, at some point, we can try to expand it too and figure out, are there community members that engage with our programs, or even some parents or some others that we could consider in the future as well. But I love that we're doing this as a first step. So I just wanted to say that and just say thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Mr. Cannon?
What can you tell us about your day job other than this delightful additional assignment?
I'm a coordinator with the Center for Access, so I work under Sarah. So I do PD. I'm working on a curriculum pilot with the K-22 programs, and we're trying to figure out the best curriculum moving forward with the AB 181 and alternate pathways. So diploma, we do, we're working with Parkside Middle with MTSS and those different systems of support and things like that, and working with other schools and PD for, other needs and things, and I've worked with Gateway and Shelley and Jonas and Heather, and it all depends on like the different needs. I also work with the workability and transition and things like that. So a large range of support. I also have a son with special needs, so I'm very invested in this community. It's very personal to me, so I try to take off that hat when I need to, but also like put it on. But I also wanted to make it very clear that I'm not trying to assume what the need is with the court and community schools, that I am working very hard to try to get their input with the families and trying to work with the teachers there that already have the relationship with those families, because I don't know those families and I don't want to go in and assume what they need, right? I want their voices. So that is the first step. That is the work. So.
Thank you, Zoni.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Great to have you before us.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you very much. Is there a motion regarding the appointment of Zoni Boyer as a San Mateo County Office of Education representative to the Community Advisory Council?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve the appointment of Zoni Boyer to the San Mateo County CAC made by Ms. Benini and a second by Mr. Torres. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with unanimous vote and Zoni Boyer has been appointed. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Item 8B, the board will discuss and potentially act on an update to the membership of the Ad Hoc Workforce Housing Subcommittee. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Superintendent McGee?
Thank you, Board President Gerard. This should be quick. Last meeting, the board voted to appoint, I guess, Board Member Benini and Board Member Gerard to this new workforce housing ad hoc subcommittee. And we knew that then potential Board Member Hugo Torres was interested, but still not fully vetted as a board member. So this is just an opportunity for Board Member Board Member Torres to be added to the subcommittee. And I did double check with Board Member Torres just to make sure that was still of interest.
That's still your desire, right?
Yes.
Okay. Having said that, is there a motion regarding updating the membership of the Ad Hoc Workforce Housing Subcommittee
I think to include
with Mr. Torres?
So moved.
Second. You don't feel.
There is a
bad about being
motion.
left out of this?
There is a motion to approve the addition of Hugo Torres to the Ad Hoc Workforce Housing Subcommittee made by Mr. Camacho and a second by Mr. Cannon. Is there any further discussion?
Okay.
Yes.
Is there going to be an opportunity for other committee assignments? Because we don't change committee assignments until,
I can't. I'm sorry.
is there an opportunity for him to join other committees later?
Other committees? Yes, we can definitely look at that.
I'm wondering if we might we could speak and see what committees you might be interested in, and then it could go on the consent agenda or something like that.
I'm almost certain that would be an appropriate process if you all want to do some work offline to identify committees that might be of interest. And then again, that could be an appropriate matter for consent.
Ms. Benini?
Oh, I just have a question. I know, I mean, former trustee Ross was on certain committees. And then I think we do have some committees that have only 2 people, maybe, like legislative. I think it only has 2 board members. Anyway, so there is some leeway there, but
Yeah,
just
I
thought
can
you'd
work
mention
with
that.
Board Member Torres to kind of look at where Board Member Ross was and where they're short. And then he can decide how much of a load he wants to take on. I think you need some counsel from Board Member Camacho.
I'm the wrong person.
He's the professional joiner.
Okay. With that, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with unanimous vote. And Hugo Torres has been added as a member of the Ad hoc Workforce Housing Subcommittee. Congratulations. Your first committee.
Yes.
Item 8C, the board will suggest topics for future board agendas. Are there any suggestions at this time? Nope. There is no action to take on this item. And item 8D is board members will comment. And I'm going to start with our new board member, Mr. Torres.
Thank you. I just want to say everyone has been so kind and welcoming, and I just feel so blessed and honored to be here. So thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Cannon?
Just to thank Chris and Sarah for shepherding, taking care of the board members. Last Friday, we had a nice visit up to Gateway and Camp Kemp and Hillcrest. So that was a delightful thing, and realized how much we missed the opportunity to be together, not only for visits like that, but just a little chance to chat amongst ourselves and have lunch together, as short as it might have been. So that was terrific. Hugo, welcome. Looking forward to many great experiences with you. And that's all I have for tonight.
Mr. Camacho?
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Torres. It's a pleasure to have you here. Join us on the board. I just wanted to share, you all know I've been participating in this fellowship for the last couple of weeks. I think the last one is on Wednesday. Very, very informative conversations with board members throughout the country. One of the things I wanted to bring to the attention of this board was there was a great presentation on a framework, governance framework called the Student Outcomes Focused Governance Model. And there was a lot of conversation around it because I think that boards go in and outs of kind of what they want to talk about. And sometimes that leads to a loss of focus on student outcomes. And so I was intrigued by that model. So I asked a couple more questions and they sent me a framework for it. But I love this idea, go figure, of us talking about student outcomes for most of our meetings. One of the questions they talked about was, does your board spend at least 50% of its time talking specifically about student outcomes? And I thought to myself, I just didn't say anything. And I'm like, I don't think we do that. I know we're a different entity, but I think there are some elements within it that are that could be useful for the conversations that we have. And so I shared it with Board President Gerard, and I just wanted to share that with you all. And if it's, I don't know if it's okay for us to share that framework or whatever, but I know we're having a new what is it called? The new beginnings thing. I just think that maybe there's time. This is the time to kind of look at other governance models that could help with that too. So I'd love to share it with Superintendent McGee and with the board, if that's okay with you all. But I've learned a lot in this fellowship, so I'd highly recommend it too for anyone that's interested in something. But that was what I wanted to share this evening.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sure that it is something that we definitely, I think, would like to have shared with all of us. I mean, our students are why we're all here, right? So we certainly want to be talking about them at our board meeting. So we'll put that on our agenda. Thank you. Ms. Benini?
Thank you. Well, first I want to welcome you both. Welcome. Next, I'm going to just roll a couple of my little reports into my comments. So there was a CAC meeting Monday, March 27th, and Zoni Boyer actually did attend, which was great. It was one of the best attended meetings I've been to ever, which was fantastic. Mary Young gave a very good outline of one of the purposes of the committee, which is the advisory role the governing board on the plan and what would be the services, and that's all tied together. Anyway, there's another meeting coming up in a couple of months, and it was great because there was an opportunity to have the document to have an extended time frame to give comments. So anyway, there weren't as many people, there were more people than usual. There were probably, I'm guessing, because I don't know the exact number of people who were appointed, but I only think there were like 4 or 5 appointees there. So you do the math with the number of districts. But that's great. And it was a really good meeting. Then I just very briefly just wanted to address the policy subcommittee. We did meet on Monday this week. And yeah, it was Monday, right? And then just to address Superintendent McGee's comments about the timeline. First, we intended to address a couple of the policies that were not, were in the 9,000 series actually, that we needed to bring it back to the committee. And so I don't know if there are still things being worked on within the county office for other series, but the policy subcommittee does have an interest, and we've shared that with Tazita to see all of the drafts, just so we can take a glance at them. And then if we had questions, then we were wanting to meet with staff or whomever would be the right people to meet with if we need to, before it comes to the board for first reading. So we don't have the drafts yet. We don't have the red lines, and we don't have access to them. And so we want to schedule another committee meeting, and then you're mentioning that you want to put it on the agenda, which is great, but we'd like to have a committee meeting first. So can we talk about that later is my comment. Great. And then I also just wanted to express appreciation for the site visits and the staff who helped us go around, and it was really great. It was great to see things in action, to see some of the students and hear some of their comments and talk to some of the teachers. It was wonderful. And thank you.
Thank you. And quickly, congratulations again. I got to have the official hug, so I'm the lucky one, but congratulations. We're so happy to have you here. Also, I want to piggyback on our visit last Friday. It was very, very informative and very enjoyable. We had a very busy schedule, and it was boom, 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 boom. But one of the things I found very, very interesting, particularly up at Hillcrest and Camp was the curiosity of the students there on why we were there and who we were. I don't remember ever having them ask those questions. And they were very pointed in saying, hey, what are you doing here? We want to know who you are, and you're here looking at us. And a lot of people come through here, but we never get to ask them why. So we decided we want to ask you why. So we told them that who we were. We introduced ourselves and our who we were, and that we were from the County Board of Education, and that their schools were part of our responsibility as county board members, and that we were very, very interested in how they felt about where they were. And I thought they were very open and honest. And it was really, quite frankly, very refreshing to be able to talk to them. And the girls at camp told us that they like some of the kind of extracurricular activities that they can do, but they would rather have ones that they were more interested in. And rather than what was being provided. So we asked them to give us some suggestions. So hopefully we'll get some from them. So anyway, I was delighted. Thank you so much for the great job you did taking us around. We appreciated it. And also, I will be attending next weekend, the CCBE Board of Directors Retreat. And added on to that, for another 5 hours after everybody else gets to go home, those of us on the conference committee will be reviewing all of the proposals that were submitted for the September conference. And I'm very excited that our county office has submitted one, which I will be a cheerleader for, I can guarantee you. So with that, our next regular meeting will take place on, oh, and thank you, Mr. Neblin, for joining us this evening. I didn't get to say hello before, so.
It's good to see you all. Thank you.
So thank you so much. And the next regular meeting will take place on Wednesday, April 19th at 7 p.m. And this meeting is adjourned.